I wanted to give this story more attention, and then Iran happened. But this was the story that NPR broke, but actually an independent journalist. I should have his name here,
Roger
Julian.
Roger Sullenberger, he's amazing.
Thank you. Roger at first broke this story that the Justice Department, Sarah, had withheld some really incriminating files related to allegations that President Trump had sexually abused a minor. Then, surprisingly, I don't know why, but last week the DOJ released documents that are part of something called the 302 files. So, before we kind of talk about the accountant coming in to testify and some of the other things, the New Mexico ranch being searched. Tell us about these particular files and why they were so important, Sarah.
Absolutely. So I think it's really important to recognize that this is a significant development, but this is what has been reported by other journalists is just one set of files related to one accuser. My reporting actually has brought it much broader. I have 9 sources familiar that have told me that, and we reported this in my piece a couple weeks ago, that there are people had shared information with the FBI, including specific mentions of Trump and allegations that are nowhere to be found in the files. So the universe of missing files is actually much larger. And I think that's important for the public to understand. And the Justice Department has not really acknowledged that.
When you say 9 sources, Sarah, are you talking about 9 different survivors with allegations or 9 sources within the Justice Department? And obviously, you can't reveal your sources, but are these people who are actually victims or people just who have knowledge of these additional files?
It's a combination of both.
只要有妈妈小小的鼓励，小朋友就可以感受到大大的关爱。就像健达巧克力含牛奶内馅，小小一片却香浓美味。健达巧克力含牛奶内馅。
Combination of both. It's a combination of both, but I would say it's an extensive. There are many victims who have submitted information to the FBI, including through their lawyers, including addressed to senior members of the Justice Department that does not appear in this. So it's a very concerning and troubling matter, both outside of the Justice Department, but I think most importantly, inside of the Justice Department. This is of great concern.
So, Sarah, are these additional files, do they incriminate the President of the United States, or do you know that have not been released?
I need to be very careful about getting into things that haven't been reported yet, but I think that they are concerning allegations that were of concern and are not random. These are things related to allegations of misconduct
Let's
and
talk about
proximity too.
let's talk about the 302 files, the more narrow files that have been released. And can you tell us what was in or what the information that was in those files?
Mhm. So a 302 is kind of one of the most important documents that the FBI produces. It's kind of the official record of an interview with a victim or someone who had knowledge, and it's among the most prized possessions. They're very, very carefully worded. They're very important. They're like the primary source document. And so the documents that were missing, that didn't originally make it in, although there were some mention of them in the files. For example, we could tell the reason that I and other journalists were able to figure this out is because there are missing page numbers, there are other references. This was just like a very, very clear example. But a
Of
302
something that had been
that
redacted.
had been redacted, that had clearly not just redacted, not released,
Right.
not released at all. And I think this is a really important point because this is not a subpoena. This is a law, and the law is incredibly broad. And there are criminal penalties for not releasing information according to the law. So that's why this is so significant. The 302s reflect interviews with a woman
Well,
who,
girl, 13-year-old.
well,
Right.
yes, she was an adult at the time of the interview, but yes, a woman who actually did not, as far as we can tell, did not reach out to the FBI herself. Others who had knew her and trusted her had reported it to the FBI, and then the FBI followed up. They had what appears to be at least 4 interviews with this individual in 2019. They are lengthy interviews. There is clear documentation both in the files that have been released and in my own reporting, which reflects that the FBI took this person seriously, believed that they were credible, found them to be a reliable source of information. And there's the 302s, there's still some redactions in them, but from what we can tell of what has been released, there is an allegation. She's describing her sexual abuse by Jeffrey Epstein, that she was 13 years old, got into his orbit, believing that she was going to be babysitting, and was very quickly abused, which is a absolute textbook pattern we know from thousands, actually, other victims. In these 302s, she makes mention of the fact that she also encountered, allegedly, Donald Trump, that she was introduced to him by Epstein, and that Donald Trump sexually assaulted her at age 13. She actually, you can tell from the narrative and the way that the interview was conducted, this is not something that she was trying to, it came about as part of the natural process. It was not her focus. Her focus was on Epstein. But it's very clear and very disturbing. Of course, we see that there were multiple follow-up interviews. And I think most crucially, at the time that this was investigated, it's not like this was investigated and then we see the FBI has closed this case. That's not clear from here. But most critically, one of the most important documents in the Epstein files to date is there's a presentation that was prepared last summer by the Trump Justice Department. It was a briefing, a kind of overview of the case for senior Justice Department leaders prepared by the FBI. And the number one, it has a list of prominent names who have allegations, true misconduct allegations, on a slide. Donald Trump, this mention is the first in that slide. So that means even as recently as last summer, this was of importance that the government felt that they needed to share it widely and share the underlying information. So that again gives this, I point that out to show that this is not, the FBI gets tons of tips. They do tons of interviews, many of them. And we can tell from the documentation that many of them come in, the FBI looks into it, they make some calls. This clearly rose to a different level. Now, Trump has not been accused by law enforcement of a crime. However, Donald Trump has also, I have confirmed, never been questioned by law enforcement about this or any other allegations. So it's a very, very, we don't have all the facts, but the fact pattern is incredibly disturbing.
According to PBS, the accuser details in very graphic terms Trump's alleged sexual assault against her and how she fought back. She also said she had 2 additional interactions with Trump, but before she expanded on that any further, she asked if she could go on to another subject. During the last interview with the accuser, the FBI asked if she would be comfortable sharing more about her contacts with Trump. She said at the time that she didn't know what the point would be when there was a strong possibility nothing could be done about it. And it's unclear if there was any additional follow-up after that last interview. I think I'm reading a transcript from PBS. So what about
one
go
thing
ahead.
you can tell, both from the publicly available documents and then I've confirmed with other reporting, independent reporting, is that the government actually sought to have her be a collaborator. So it wasn't just that this was a 302 that came in. They were interested in pursuing this further and having her be a primary potential witness, who knows, some kind of thing. So again, it speaks to the fact that this was taken seriously. We don't have all the facts, but we know that it was taken seriously and that law enforcement officers to this day believe that this was a credible accusation.
So you say that it was all ready to go last summer. Pam Bondi was the attorney general then. She's the attorney general now. Not to be Captain Obvious, but what happened?
大部分的音乐 App 都有通用的健身播放清单， YouTube Music App 则有零广告的个人化播放清单，专为你和你的健身时刻打造。加油，食指！